How you doing, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of In the Sand Podcast. Excited as always to be back for another episode. I'm so grateful for the support of so many coaches. It's just amazing to be able to see the conversations that we have about just supporting one another, lifting everybody up, and giving a platform to share our stories. We have another amazing coach on. Coach Lauren Dixon again was a former competitor of us. Well, for me when I was at Pisgah, and then I end up going to Richland, and I run right back into coach. So that it's always good to have good competition. And every time that we played, it was good battles. And the thing that I really admire about Coach Dixon is that she can go into a situation, and it may not necessarily be the best, but as you're going to see in this interview and just kind of listen to her story, a lot of what she does makes a difference about the program that she creates. Her passion for kids is unquestionable, and you will see that. But her will to make something out of nothing, and when I mean nothing, not in a negative way, but make something where people say, well, you can't do that, or you won't be successful, or maybe you shouldn't even take that job. She makes it, she takes it, and when she leaves it, it's like gold, and not everybody wants a part of it. So that's the type of coach that we're going to hear from today. Just amazing. We had great conversation before we even got started. We were just talking before we even started the interview. We probably have been talking about 30 minutes. So I'm just excited for you to hear from Coach. Coach, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Coach.
Yes, man, it's good to have you on, and just excited to hear from you. And I said this earlier when I was talking with Coach Moncrief. A lot of times when you are competing against another person, for some reason, and it's the competitive nature in us, we really fail to look at the person across the sideline from us to see them as a human being and a person. And sometimes you get so caught up in that, but you just never take time to let me just pick their brain or have a conversation. And you and I did that from time to time when we would have like shootouts. I think one year, you had a jamboree. I came over to the jamboree when you was at McLaurin. I had a shootout when I was at Pisgah. You and I sat down and kind of talked in general, but we never just had the conversation that we had even before we started this interview. And I'm glad that we're having it now because I learned so much about you, and your story is an amazing story. And to be honest, Coach, I never imagined the story that you're going to tell us today. I never saw any of that in you. I just saw that stone-blooded killer. And
that's right.
And that's a part of your personality, which is nothing to be apologetic about, or unapologetic about, excuse me, but it's a part of your character that makes you and drives you. And I think sometimes we get people confused, like who we see on the sideline in the heat of battle is who they are. And that's not true. So I'm excited just to hear your story, Coach. So let's not delay, Coach. Tell us about how the game of basketball has got you to this point here.
Ooh. Well, I started off in 9th grade. I actually went to East Rankin Academy, and I played under Grant Thompson, who was super high energy, believed in me more than I could have ever believed in myself, honestly. And then as a junior, I ended up transferring to Forest Hill High School. At the time, not to say private school basketball wasn't good, because it was, but I really wanted to try to prove myself at the highest level. And so I transferred. I played for Coach Groves at Forest Hill. And then I ended up playing at Pearl River Community College. So that was kind of where I got my basketball playing start. My dad is actually a coach. He's not a basketball coach, but he is a coach. So I'm a coach's daughter. My husband jokes that I'm like the girl from Remember the Titans that's like yelling at the parents, but I'm not. But anyway, but my dad was a coach. So I've just always been around, sports and basketball, baseball, things like that. And I love sports. It's probably the one thing that, wakes me up in the morning. So that is kind of the basketball side of it. I started off at Hazelhurst Middle School. And so I actually had no intention on coaching. I wanted to teach and change the world. I am an English teacher too. So that was kind of my path and my plan. And when I got there, they asked me if I would coach the middle school girls. So I did. And I really, really enjoyed that. And then I had the opportunity to go to Brandon, and I actually didn't go to Brandon to coach. I went to Brandon again to teach. I taught English too, so I taught the state test at the time. And that's why I went to Brandon, and just so happened, first day of school, they put all the teachers at, different tables, English teacher, a math teacher, a history teacher, a elective, and I end up at the table with Stephanie Murphy, and it's kind of all she wrote from there. So, and then obviously I went to McLaurin for 2 years, and now I'm at Florence High School.
Coach, that's an amazing story. And you have kind of been under the influence of some great coaches at East. Yes. I'm thinking about Forest Hill. Now, I know Coach Groves. I seen him from a distance, and he has an amazing resume on the girls' side when he's coaching basketball. I know now he's currently at St. Joe, and had an opportunity at my last 2 years at Pisgah to be able to take my teams and play against his teams. And the thing about this is when I saw Coach Groves, he keeps it very simple. Like, you don't even really necessarily have to scout for real. And I don't mean it in a negative way, is that he just keeps it simple. He knows what his team does well, and he's going to execute that into the highest level. And he's going to take away the strengths of your team and make you beat him with your weaknesses. And so those things kind of gave us some challenges, but it was just good to work around him. I know probably when he was a little bit younger, he probably was a little bit more like rah-rah. He wasn't.
No, he wasn't. He actually, coach is getting on up there. So he's been around a long time. I mean, when I played for him, he was, probably in his early 50s maybe, and he was still, rock and rolling. But the biggest thing with Coach Groves is an excellent, mechanical, skills. Like, even when I was in high school, when I transferred to Forest Hill, I had the typical wind up, shot. And he said, "You are not shooting like that. We're fixing your shot." And he actually, this is before phones, so he actually pulls out the camcorder, records my every move. I mean, and he did that for weeks until I fixed it, or until it was fixed. I was trying to fix it, but, until it was fixed. He's very detail oriented, and I think that's where I get my just being so detail oriented. But he's super big on discipline. Like, you're not going to get away with the thing. I have plenty of stories. I only got in trouble once, but it was definitely life changing when I did. So he just doesn't play at all about discipline. Now he may have gotten a little more laid back as he's gotten older. I don't know. I haven't been around his programs, but when we played for him, he was just so disciplined and so detail oriented. And he really was an excellent coach. So I definitely enjoyed my time playing for him.
Yeah, it's the same way. No, he's still very disciplined. Like, you can just tell where his girls. He's just not. Again, he's getting up in age, so it's not a lot of hollering. Excuse me, not a lot of up and down. He's gonna get his pattern, and he's gonna do what he needs to do. But when he needs to get out there, ladies, he does. Coach, the community college. Talk to us about that. I didn't know you played Juco ball. Talk to us about your experience a little bit with that, and I don't know if it was like that during this time, because I know at one time Jucos could only recruit a certain area that was in their zone, and maybe that part, had passed by the time you got there. But if it was still in play, talk to us a little bit about that, because most people didn't. And then talk about your experience at Pearl River.
So no, it had not passed. I actually was froze by Hines, but at the time they were pretty laid back about it. If you asked them to be released, they would. And so I really liked the coach at Pearl River at the time, Ed Wally, and his son was the assistant. And so I went there. It was, honestly, college ball is very difficult. It's very different. It's everybody's best players. So you really got to be ready for that. And I think that, a lot of kids, even these days, they don't really know the amount of time management skills that you have to really manage that. But Pearl River is and even now, Scotty Fletcher is doing an excellent job at Pearl River. He's really, really got Pearl River on the up and up. I know even so many kids who it's very appealing to them. It's one of their top choices with the new Coliseum and just, a lot of nice additions on campus. We actually go there every year for our Thanksgiving tournament. And he's a great host, and he does a great job. So Pearl River is definitely a special place to be. It's close to Hattiesburg. It's close to the coast. So yeah, they kind of got it going on right now.
Yeah, that is though. And the men's side, they're doing a great job. Pearl River is sort of a hidden jewel in and of itself.
It is.
And coach, just major props up to you. You know, sometimes people from the outside looking in, they hate on coaches and say all they do is sit in the gym. But I mean, you getting it done on the English side of it and just starting off on that. I'm not sure if you're still in the classroom on that part of it. That's what's up. Hey, man, hey, that's props to you. So as fans, not all coaches are in the gym, and just because you're in the gym don't mean you're a bad person either. But even more respect to those who getting it done on both sides. You know, this is my first year it's my 14th year, first time being in PE. So before then, history classes, health classes. So much respect to all our coaches who doing it on a major level. Coach, while we here, you mentioned something. You mentioned Coach Murphy. And this, I don't know how it happens, but I have a lot of people who have kind of fell under her coaching tree who have made an appearance or will make an appearance on the podcast from Coach Foster. Obviously, she's going to Merle. Coach Butler will be on soon. He's at East Mississippi. And of course, you, Coach, talk to us a little bit about just Coach Murphy and what makes her special and just your experiences with her. And I know she got some good things coming up down the road in her career path right now, making some major moves. But just talk us a little bit about Coach Murphy before we move on to our next part.
So, you know, you talk about her coaching tree, and it's funny because she literally calls it that. She's like, my little coaching tree. She takes a lot of pride in putting out head coaches. And I think that's so special, you know, because even when I was working for her, like, she delegated so many tasks to us that I used to think if I was a head coach, I probably wouldn't trust someone with it. I know there were so many times where she would look at, you know, we all kind of had our different role. And if you looked at the bench, you would see probably 4 or 5 of us sitting there, and we all were really good at different things, you know, and there would be times where I would be able to sit there and watch and say, okay, we need to go Callie. And she'd say, well, we need Callie. And then, you know, she would take it and listen. And she really gave you opportunities to not just learn from her, because she is one of the best. Like when it comes to, I mean, literally top to bottom, she is so, I mean, I hate to say detail oriented again, but she is just so detail oriented. And she really, her discipline and the amount of time she's willing to put in, and then just how much of like the business side of it that she's so great at, you know, almost the off the court stuff that people don't really realize, like just how much she's doing all the time for the program and with the program. And so the more you're around somebody like that and you can really like see it, you know, I tell people all the time, I thought I was ready out of college to be a head coach, you know, and I thought I was ready definitely after, you know, Hazelhurst. I'm like, okay, I got my feet wet. I'm good, you know. But I would not, and a lot of us would not be half of what we are without having coached under her, because she just, the amount of things you learn from her, just like I said, and then the fact that like we can all still call her. Like even the other day I called Murph. I'm like, Murph, tell me what to do, you know? And the first thing she says is, you need to pray about it. Like that's her. She's just so good. She's so good. I used to joke with her and tell her she was first team all Christian. I'd be like, girl, you first team all Christian. But she just is, she comes across, you know, just like all business, but she's not. She's such a good person. So she takes a lot of pride in her coaching tree, though. And there are a lot of us, you know, Holly, Kendra at McGee, Tori at Clinton, and then Candace, obviously, and just so many of us that are head coaches now. Matt Justice at Tupelo was under her. And then Isaiah at East Mississippi. So there's just a lot. She really has put out, she gives back in that way for sure.
That's good to hear. And the same things that you said especially about praying about a decision or doing something. Candace Foster said the exact same thing. And to be honest, Coach Murphy should be on in a couple of weeks. You know, we had something set up and then she had some other things going on. So I'm just excited really to have her on. And to be honest, you all are kind of just building a segue for us. I don't even know how much she's going to say because it's
She's
so.
gonna teach you some stuff.
I know it, right? It's so many things that she's going to say that's already been said. So I really hope that she's watching these episodes because there's a lot of good things being said about her. And if she's not watching, she got a lot of catching up to do because it's a lot of good stuff she really needs to hear. All right, let's talk a little bit about. I want to talk about this, and you and I talked about this before, and this is kind of what really kind of put me on notice about some of the great things that you were doing. And it's the way you change a program. And I mentioned this earlier when I was kind of introducing you. And it wasn't any fluff. Like, it's exactly what I said, is exactly what I feel, and it's exactly what you have done. And let's talk a little bit about McLaurin. I know that you mentioned it, and we're going to spend more time talking about where you are currently now at Florence High School. But at McLaurin, and this is no shot to McLaurin when we say this, we just want to get some clarity on that. What we mean by that is when Coach came into the situation, the program had great coaches prior to it. I know it was 2 coaches prior to before you got there in a small window. So when you look at the transition, I can't think of the exact time, but I want to say, and you may can clear it up, you might have been the 3rd coach in maybe 3 or 4 years. It's 2 or 3 years. I can't remember when it, because I know it was I can't remember. I know Coach Stewart was before you. There's another guy. He went down the coast, and I can't remember his timeline.
Coach K.
Yep, Coach.
Coach K was actually there before Coach Stewart. He was there a while. He coached Ariel Wilson. You know, she was a Danny Dozen at McLaurin, and then Coach Stewart came right before me. So he was there for few years before me, or a couple years, I think.
I think it was 2 years. And we said all that to say, so won't nobody say, well, we're not doing that. We're giving credit where credit was due. But when Coach stepped onto the program or stepped onto campus, the program was in need of somebody to guide them. And so, Coach, talk us about the process that you went through, because I know some of the things that you did, from upgrading the locker room, working on your graphics, working on the facility, just building that. So, Coach, talk a little bit about that, and then that's going to kind of lead into the segue to Florence, so people can get a feel. And I wanted to have you on because you do it at a high level, but there are a lot of young coaches that are about to take their first head coaching job. And we know a lot of times your first job is typically, what's the best word to say? It's typically a spot where you have to kind of get in and grind early, and you get your hands dirty, you get your feet dirty, because a lot of times it's not in the best program, but it's an opportunity for you to grow. So I want you to hear Dixon on how she has built programs, and it's going to help a lot of us. And I'm going to even take notes as well, because I'm in a new program and I want to take some more notes on how I can continue to move my program forward.
Right. So when I got there, I actually thought Coach Stewart did an excellent job at McLaurin. It was a tough situation. The girls, as talented as they were, they had a lot of just attitude issues that needed to be worked out. And they were just kind of young, you know, and at times immature, but over the course of a couple years, you definitely saw that adjust and change, and they became better people, and I became a better person too. But when you just talk about rebuilding a program, and this is going to sound probably unorthodox and a little crazy, but I actually think that the first thing that you've got to do is reestablish a sense of pride in the program. So when I say that, a lot of times there may be athletes at the school that if the program's down, they don't want to participate in it, because it might make them look bad if they decide to go out for basketball and lose 28 games, you know? And so if you can reestablish a sense of pride in your program with nice things, I know that sounds, you know, trivial and maybe even materialistic, but if you can get them the nice gear, if you can make them look like the nicest, the best dressed team on campus, that stuff matters, because it reestablishes the pride that you've got to have to be successful. You know, you don't want kids to go through your program and not want to be there, or, you know, or not participate because it's a bad look, you know? So if you can kind of juice it up a little bit with the nice stuff, you know, and things like that. And then the locker room, I know you mentioned that. When I got to McLaurin, the locker room it was, it needed just some TLC, really. You know, it just needed a paint job. It needed, you know, new lockers. It just needed nice stuff. And if you can kind of make it a place where kids want to be, kids want to hang out, kids want to be in the gym, you know, then I think you have a better chance of being successful. So that's actually, I know it sounds crazy, but I think that's number one. I think you have to get them nice things and like reestablish the pride in the program. And then after that, of course, you got to build relationships, you know, because a lot of times if you're coming into a program like that, your seniors, you know, they may have had 2 or 3 coaches. And since middle school, they may have had more than that. You know, you don't know. And so you're just another person that they're trying to say, okay, is she really going to stick around? Does she really care about me? You know, what's the situation here? So you have to really build relationships too. I have about probably a couple more things that I actually, you know, think you got to give them some input when you can, just because that makes them feel like a sense of pride in it. You know, you can either do that to your seniors, or at times you can ask the whole team on situations like that. But that's what I really think is important to reestablish in the program. And if you can bring back kids that were a part of it when it was successful, I think that's huge too. You know, at McLaurin, I brought in Ariel Wilson, and I remember the day that she came to speak, and it was so powerful. She watched a few minutes of our practice, and then she talked to them, and she said, "Number one, nobody in here is talking." She said, "This gym is quiet," and she was like, "How can you be successful?" You know, and then we had her picture in the locker room, and it was, you know, she was a dandy dozen. She came from McLaurin. She could have transferred to Brandon or Florence or anywhere she wanted to go, but she stayed. And so I think that's important too, is to bring back the kids that have been successful, you know, and have them talk about the program and what it once was and what it can be again.
Coach, I like that, Coach. And Coach, please don't hold anything back. Give us all the secrets, and maybe you can give us some more of those things that we trying to talk about Florence. But I want to piggyback on these 3 things. Reestablish the brand. Coach, you got a lot of wisdom, and this is going to help, I think, more of our seasoned coaches out. And I started to realize this as well. This generation, and again, seasoned coaches may understand this, so I don't want to take anything from anybody, but kids do not want to look bad. It is like, from like you, and you said it correctly, like if the team is bad, they don't want to do it. If the band's not doing good, they don't want to do it. Like they do not want to look bad. And it's unrealistic sometimes to just imagine that. Well, yeah, probably a better choice of word, excuse me for that. But they don't want to look bad. So I like what you said.
Right.
You have to make what they're doing look fun, look cool, because unfortunately, they worry more about what their peers are saying than what we are saying. So I like that you said that the locker room is very key, because you have to. We live in the gym, obviously, and you got to be able to want to come to a place where you feel comfortable. And here's the thing about it, Coach. I know it, and I'm introducing it to my fans. And what I'm saying, a lot of those things you got to come out of your own pocket. A lot of those things you had to borrow. And I remember you talking about like talking with the community, getting some things donated. Like it's a lot that Dixon left out that she did, but those things made a difference, and that took extra work. Like that's like this had to do it, but she realized that if I'm going to reestablish and put this spot in a place where it belongs, I'm gonna have to do a little bit more probably than I may have signed up for, but it's gonna pay major rewards in the end. And then building relationships, especially being at small schools, and then number 2, being at a school where it hasn't traditionally always been great. The kids and the community got to really trust you, because they understand that coaches and principals and teachers, they get a spot, but a lot of people are always looking to advance in their careers, and there's nothing wrong with it. So that was one thing when I got to Pisgah too, is that the community didn't necessarily invite me right in. And not in a negative way. It's just you're an outsider. And so we want to know, are you going to be here for us? Are you going to love us and be a part of this? And it took a year, maybe a year and a half, but once they found out that, my heart was there and we started building relationships, that makes a difference. So Coach, I love those three. I love to hear the rest of them as we move on. Now, you go down the road, you go to Florence High School. Now, I know the people in McLaurin had to be sick when they heard that you were leaving, Coach. So, and that's so challenging right now when you have to leave a school because you invest so much in kids. And I know a lot of coaches now are in that mode where they're going to a new spot. Of course, I know I'm at Richardson. I work with Coach Strong, and she'll be going to Forest High School, her home school, or her home where she attended high school, and I can kind of see the struggle it is on her face leaving the program because she has invested so much, and I can imagine it's the same for you when you had to leave McLaurin. So, Coach, talk to us about that transition as you leave, if you are preparing to leave McLaurin and taking your talents to Florence. Walk us through the process of that decision, because you said it earlier, and you and I talked about this off camera. There's a lot of coaches trying to weigh their options. Should I take this job? Should I take this job? And it's so, the mental wear and tear is difficult. So kind of talk about that. And then once you kind of address that, just talk about Florence High School. Talk a little bit about the community. Talk about your administration, your assistant coaches, and just kind of give us an idea of what Florence High School has to offer.
Okay. Well, the decision to leave was definitely not easy, and it actually wasn't even sought out. I did not, Florence didn't hit the MHSAA page and everybody say there's a job opening. The coach at the time, he had stepped in for a year, and he texted me out of nowhere and said, why don't you come to Florence? I said, no, I'm not going to Florence. I'm good. I've really put a lot into this program. I'm going to see it through. I'm not going to leave. And he said, well, I understand. Just maybe can you come in Friday and see the admin? And I coach and I guess, and Stephanie told me that one of her mentors always told her, number one, don't ever make decisions on a leave based on kids, because she said you're going to love the kids anywhere you go. And that is the truth. And it's incredibly hard to tell kids that you're leaving. But at the same time, you are going to love the next group just as much, and you'll probably keep those connections as well. But also that if someone invites you in, there's nothing bad about going and seeing what they have to offer. And so I did. I just went to talk, and kind of see. And at the time, Florence was a program that once was really, really good. In 2016, they played for the state championship. The problem was all those girls graduated, and they were bringing in, all freshmen to start playing against Raymond and Lanier, and, and it was difficult. And so they went a few years struggling. And then, I thought, why in the world would I leave what I've built? I just did this already. Why am I going to do this again? This is crazy. And I started praying about it, and I really just felt like God was telling me to go, and I could not explain it. I couldn't explain it to my husband. He said, Lauren, what are you thinking? Lakira Alexander, who was a 6'3", 4" kid, was a ninth grader or an eighth grader. She might even be an eighth grader. And he said, Lauren, you can build this around Lakira. You can be really successful. I said, I know. I don't know why God is telling me to leave. I can't even tell you. I can't even tell you. And so anyway, I prayed on it, and I actually didn't make a decision for a couple weeks. It was not a quick thing at all. I prayed on it. I couldn't sleep, that type of thing. And so ultimately I tried to follow God in what I thought he was telling me to do. And again, it was unexplainable because I had no reason to leave. But I did. And Florence, honestly, now I look at it and I go, I get it. I get it, God. I've had groups that have bought in, have been great kids. And I've been just super blessed to be at Florence. And just even everything it's offered, Stan has been able to be there and coach alongside of me. And that's been nice, because when you're married and you're coaching, if you're in different places, you may not see each other very much. And so it's been a good 4 years being able to do that. And then obviously I've had a lot of talent come through, and I definitely have a lot of talent now. that I'm about to really see the fruits of our labor. So, it's all worked out and it's all made sense. So I think just following God and listening when he tells you to do something, that's number one. Obviously write down the pros and cons, but sometimes God will intervene and tell you it doesn't make sense, but do it anyway. And that's where I kind of felt like happened with Florence for sure.
Yeah, Coach, it's amazing to be able to had an opportunity to be able to see your girls play. I don't coach girls anymore, but I was obviously able to see your girls play, and they resemble you. Hard, tough nose, desire to win, not going to let anyone outshine them, outwork them. But talk about your young ladies and just talk about your skill to develop the skill in those young ladies to play inside and out.
Mm-hmm. Well, I tell people all the time that my sophomore class is really special. And I feel like they're one of the best sophomore classes in the state. It has those two that you're speaking of, which is Kaylee Chancellor and Star Amos. And then it has a true point guard, Lisa Amos. And then it has just a bully guard who's just tough nosed, mean as all get out. You kind of got to hold her back a little bit, in Ariana Barnes. And then it has another post player named Destiny Thomas. So I really feel like that class is super, super strong. And even when they were young, as like 7th and 8th graders, I'm looking at them and I'm like just googly eyed because I see long, lean bodies and I'm like, oh, I can't wait. But they honestly, so Kaylee and Star, this is again, as sophomores, they're coming in and starting. And so, and over some really good post players, I actually I feel like the game is kind of going more to a guard. It's a guard's world, but I have really good post players. And so you have to utilize that. I'm still kind of old school in that I tell Star all the time, I'm like, stop taking that shot and go get a layup, or just drop step or do this or do that. And I probably won't change on that side of it, but, they do all the ball handling drills that we do. They do any type of, off the dribble attack drills that we're doing, they're doing it. I don't say, okay, guards down here, post down. I do at times, but when the team is doing ball handling, we're all doing ball handling, and it's been funny, even this off season, just Star is the really, really tall one, right? They're both tall, that we call them twin towers, but Star is the one that's really, really tall. And she, you think put her in the post. Well, she can shoot the three and she can go behind the back and she can go between the legs. And it's like, for me as a coach, figuring out how to balance that, and I tell her all the time, I'm like, no, you're just a post that can shoot the three. Like, you're a post that can go between the legs. We're not a guard. She wants that so bad. She says, I'm a guard. I'm like, hold up. But when we scrimmage, she knocks down threes. I mean, they have to guard her, and then when they do, she goes off the dribble. So she's really, really tough. And then Kaylee's, I gave her this award at awards night, but to me, she's one of the best finishers in the state. Her body can be all types of directions and her still somehow get around to finish in transition. And I've seen her make some crazy finishes. I don't even know if she knows how good she's going to be, but I think the development of them comes with not putting that label on them. Like, you're not going to do the ball handling drills, go do Micah. You don't have to do that. You can let them participate in all that, because all it's going to do is make them a better player. And you need a post to break the press. You need a 4 that can get in the middle of that press and break it up. And so I don't really see a lot of harm in it. I think that, you don't want it to turn into how sometimes the men's game is, where they love getting out on the wing, and that's all they want to do. And I tell Star all the time, don't fall in love with this, Star. Get in there and bang too, but I do see it as an advantage for sure. I'm glad they're on my team and not someone else's for sure.
Yeah, it's good to see, because it's very rare. And to be honest, Coach, I don't see anything wrong with it. Now, I agree with what you said, and we grew up in the same era, same generation. It was no question asked. And when I think about it, I don't really know if that was fair to kids just because you were tall. If you were tall, you were expected to be on the block. That's all you did. And when I think about it, I don't know, coach. It's because, and I know things changed. The game was like that inside out. Um, but I'm just not sure because you are right. If you are tall, you got those, you need to get the easier bucket. But why not kind of change it up? So I love that you implement that. And I guess my great defense to that is Anthony Davis. And we know the story of Anthony Davis. He was a guard height, maybe 6'1", 6'2", and I know I'm probably messing up the heights. So he was doing all the guard skills. Then he just hit a major growth spur. And so he ended up turning into a big man. But what makes him dynamic, and I know people hate on AD, and AD is a ball. I know he gets injured a lot, but he's so skilled because he got guard skills. And so now he can play down low. He can step out on the perimeter, and it's good. But coach, you said something that's also key, which shows your wisdom. We live in a 3-point generation world, so all the kids do want to shoot a three. It's okay, you shoot it sometime, but it's a lot more things you can do to be so successful with that. So, coach,
Right.
I love to just see different styles, and I love to see coaches stepping outside of the box and changing the game up. Now, here's something else that I like that I saw, and it's kind of, again, going off script a little bit. Coach, talk to us a little about your press defense, because I saw, that's a dream to me. Like, I have a way that I want to press, but coach, if I ever had some size like you had, I feel like my press would be a dream come true. So, coach, talk to us about your press defense. And then, coach, while we're here, to talk a little bit about your philosophy on defense, but definitely give people some insight. And of course, I know you can't tell us everything, because again, we tell you, if you tell everything, some of your big competitors might be taking notes. But talk to us about your press, because it's amazing to see with those tall young ladies. Hold on, before we do that, coach, what's their height? What's the height of Star?
I think Star's probably 6'1", and then Kaylee might be pushing 6 foot now. And she's 5'11", 6 foot, probably.
And to be honest, coach, they look so much taller in person, and then them to be just 10th grade. So, coach, talk to us again about, your press. I know I'm getting excited just talking about press defense, but talk about press defense
Well,
and your philosophy overall about defense.
yeah, well, we actually spent probably the entire preseason, going up to season, working on our run and jump. And I did 50 million drills. We did the drills every single day. I was like, I'm committing to it. I love it. I want to do it. And I told them up front, I said, look, y'all, I've never had a group be able to do it, because as easy as it is, it's actually complicated too. And so it was kind of difficult, but we did the drills every day, every day, every day. And honestly, we didn't even use it that much. We used it in spurts when I thought we could. But that's kind of where it started. And then I think when you have been doing that, and then you put in a 2-2-1 or 1-2-2, even though it maybe isn't supposed to be as aggressive, when they're understanding rotations and they're really moving, now you have something special. But honestly, coach, I feel like I run almost every defense. It really depends on what I feel like will beat the other team. And that's it. If I don't feel like I can run a 2-2-1 against somebody, I don't run it. If I don't feel like I can diamond press somebody, I don't do it. I may try it and see, or I may save it right to the end and see if I can throw it at them. But I'm not one of those coaches that this is my thing, and sometimes that bothers me that I'm not, because, West Jones state champion, in my district, I know they're going to play man-to-man. They're going to play great man-to-man. Brookhaven's going to play the little amoeba zone. It's a matchup, and they have an identity. And sometimes it does bother me that we don't. But Coach Murray, she actually told me, and a lot of the reason she didn't want to see us was because of Faith, Faith Quick, my point guard. But at the same time, she said, you guys change it up so much. Like, I never know what's coming, and it makes it difficult. And we actually almost beat them twice, and it just to be that close to the state champ, that you're right there. And so I feel like defense to me, like, I wish I had one thing that they could say, this is what she's going to do, but it's just not. I really try to scheme. I try to figure out what I think the other team's weakness is, and then I kind of throw different things as I can.
Coach, that's good to be able to see that. And I kind of felt like that too, because again, you just, of course, when you went to Forest Hill, I went to Merle, I think about some of the teams that we saw in Jackson. Like, you knew you played Lanier, like you knew what you was going to get. Again, if you bring it back down, come back to where we are now as coaches, a lot of coaches in the area, like, what they're going to do, what's coming. But I heard a coach at Calhoun City, I think it's Coach Fox. He talked about, they asked him, I saw an interview, and they asked him, like, what is your philosophy? And so I got my pencil ready listening. Man, he said, it's kind of tough to say what my philosophy is because it changes because my team is different. So what he really said is it's a fluid. It changes all the time. Season to season. Like he has like, excuse me, he has an idea on how he wants to play, but it changes. So I don't think you're alone in that, Coach, because it really does change. Now I think obviously when we get to college level, or you get into the NBA, you can establish those things, but now you can recruit to that and put kids in a position. So I think that it does change. I mean, it's good to be able to have an identity, but team where they can run anything on you, that kind of keeps you on your toes. So I think that's good. I don't think it's nothing to maybe question yourself about. I just think that could be your philosophy, just the unknown, and that's always a thing in of itself. Coach, you're detail oriented, and maybe you got that from Coach Murphy, but I noticed that about you, and also too, and talk to us about where that came from, with you being so detail oriented. And before you answer that, I would be remiss if I don't mention your parents. You talking about two parents who love their daughter, love their son-in-law, love their grandkids. When you see the Dixon family, you're going to see Lauren's mom, you're going to see Lauren's dad. Amazing people, very encouraging people, and I think that's a lot where she gets a lot of that from. Obviously, of course, her dad, had an opportunity to work with him sometime when he came over to the school. And just a very good guy. I talked about it on the episode I did with Coach Stanley Dixon. He gave me good advice. Also gave me a book about Jay Wright. So again, and they help out at Florence. So, Coach, I want to just stop before we talk about you a little bit, and let's kind of give them a little bit of shine. And then also to talk about Coach Stanley Dixon, man. You talking about a guy that's full of energy. And I told him this the other day. You could literally be having a bad day, and on the phone, man, and he'll make you feel like ain't nothing happened in your world, and he could be having a bad day, he could be having a horrible day, but man, he really makes you just get excited. And you talking about a humble guy, like he's so humble, and he's just a good quality guy that you really want to be around. And so talk about mom and dad, and then talk a little bit about Stan. And I know on his episode, he mentioned, he said he almost lost you because he was taking a little bit too long to make up his mind. And I thought, I said, you better not be playing like Lauren, don't play like that. So I was just messing with him though. But talk about I'm excited to hear that.
Well, I think it's very important. If you don't have people that support you, don't take a program that needs to be changed, because you're not going to be able to do it if they really don't. I mean, sometimes it's an all-in effort. My mom ran my concession stand at McLaurin. My dad ran my clock, and now, that if I need a book, my mom can do it. She thinks she's the best bookkeeper in the world. And then my dad, he's had to step in this year and do the scoreboard at times when he's like, I don't know how to work this, but our score guy, had some illnesses and it was quick. And my dad said, I'll do whatever, and so they really do help so much. And then even with our kids, like, when you have kids, it can be hard to balance coaching, and both of us are coaches. And so, if it's a game night, we may be there, be in time, and we never leave the school, and so they can pick up the kids, help us out, different types. So it really takes a village. And honestly, the girls help, and the boys can help out too at times. Our kids, our own players, our kids love our players more than anything. So anyway, but they really do have to be bought in too. It's kind of everybody's feet are in. And then Stan is so high energy. You better be ready when he calls and he's excited. So He's definitely, man, I tell him all the time. I tell him, whenever he started looking for jobs and things, I said, man, you're gonna have your choice. Like you don't even get it. You hadn't been around this like on this side of it, on the administrative side of it for long, or maybe at all yet. But people like you is that's what we want. We want somebody that's high energy. We want somebody that's going to work really hard. And so he is definitely that, and he knows his stuff. He played, you talked about it on his podcast, but he played for Luther Riley. Like he really is all in all the time. And so he is a good one. So
yeah, man, Stan is my guy. Like you said, we met just in unheard of circumstances and in the heat of battle.
Yes.
So
look, he jumped right in those stands, didn't he? I said, "Why would you do that?" He said, "I had to stop it." We had some parents getting to it, but he said, "I had to stop it," and he did. He jumped right up there and stopped it. So
it was so funny, like, and if you have to know Lawrence gym, so for like literally for Stan to be able to come off the floor in the bleachers, it reminded me almost like a wrestling match, how the wrestler bottom rope man, Stan got on that ass, and he ain't bumped his knee, hit his head, or anything. So those who know Lawrence gym, you can imagine what we're talking about. But again, Stan's a great guy, and I agree with you. Any coach that's listening, man, of course, I know he got some things going on that he trying to make a good decision about. And so I don't want to say too much, but what I will say is that if you're looking for a guy, man, you got to reach out to Coach Stanley Dixon, man. But shout out to my guy. Let's go back into the original question that I had. Again, I couldn't miss the family. Talk to us again about why are you so detailed in what you do? Because you being detailed, coach, is a reason that you're successful.
Well, I really, when I think about this question, I really think it's because when I was in high school, well, all growing up, I was a softball kid. I mean, I played basketball, whatever league came up, I would play, but I was really a softball kid. I played softball year round. It was kind of my thing. I was natural at it. It was easy. It wasn't a whole lot we worked hard, obviously, because I was on a very good tournament team, travel team. But it just came natural. It didn't require a lot of work. Basketball, on the other hand, I was not super quick laterally, which is kind of weird because I wasn't slow, running, but I wasn't super quick laterally. And so I feel like I had to be super detail oriented and high IQ to perform or to even play at a high level. When I went to Forest Hill, it was the highest level there was, it was 5A basketball. And so the angle I take may be the difference in me getting there or not, or whatever the case may be. So I think that just being a little bit I was very skilled, but I was not very quick, and so I think I kind of had to compensate in that way with the IQ. And so I think that's kind of where my attention to detail comes in. Is I think it's super important. I think when you think basketball things, every little thing matters. Pick and roll is not going to matter if you don't come off the hip or shoulder of your teammate. So I think that's where, just kind of being at a slight disadvantage on the playing side and having to compensate for it.
That's important. And that what makes a great coach, because those same things that you did as a player, not knowing it, that's prepares you to be a coach, because from possession to possession, you really got to pay attention to detail. And obviously you have, you got assistant coaches helping you out, things of that nature. You got your kids on the floor, but a coach, you have to constantly keep paying attention about what's going on. You have to figure out on the offensive side, the defensive side. I call it special teams, when you got to work on your fast break, your baseline out of bounds, sideline out of bounds, press break, press defense. It's so many things that you have to be able to do, and you have to be detailed, and you got to prepare yourself for it. So again, young coaches who get in the game, spend some time working on your details. It's so important, because if you do the groundwork early, when you get in the game, and it may be a pressure situation, but you're going to be so cool, calm, and collective because you have prepared yourself mentally. Then you got all your details in line. So that makes a difference. Coach, I'm going to ask you two more questions. Then we're going to get into our fast break questions and then get into the conclusion with our last shot. Coach, talk to us about, and this is a good topic to talk about because it just really depends on your perspective with it. I know we this kind of going off script a little bit, but it made me think about it when you talked about travel ball with softball and playing sports outside of your school is so important. And Coach, talk to us about where do you feel travel basketball is going, or AAU basketball or circuit basketball? Talk to us about where it's going and then where it could be in the next few years. And I'm not saying this in a negative way, because again, when high school coaches get together, or AAU coaches or travel ball coaches get together, they almost pit us against one another. And that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, how have you seen the evolution of it? And where do you see it going as it helps our kids advance? Because travel basketball or AAU basketball or circuit basketball is much more different when you and I were in that arena or that area of life than it is right now. So kind of speak to that a little bit, because I think that's a good topic, that a constant conversation that happens amongst coaches.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's super important, obviously, that kids play. And I think that the biggest thing to me is, you don't want, as a coach, you don't want your kids to go onto an AAU team, let's say, because that's what we call every team outside of school, right? But you don't want them to go to AAU team and then pick up bad habits. Okay. So every head coach honestly just wants someone in that AAU program that's pushing skill work, that's on them like you're on them, that's doing all the things that, what is the objective of them playing? Number one, it's for them to get better. And number two, obviously the kids feel like they get seen, when they go to these tournaments. So I think it's super important that they play, but I also think that it's very important, who they're playing for, that they're getting the skills and not kind of undoing what you've preached for 8 months, and then in the 4 months they play for an AAU, it gets undone. So I really think that, playing is super important. In that same breath, I also think that breaks are super important at times, and that can be, that's why I honestly, I'm probably the minority on this, but I actually like multi-sport athletes that kind of get different, takes and different coaches, and just get to kind of change seasons some, and not necessarily be working the same exact muscles all the time, even though it does get you better, playing. But I definitely think, the AAU world, it's intense. I didn't really get into it, but Stan did start a team, and he really did, I feel like, a good job with it. So we were kind of all in, and, just traveling and things. It kind of opened up my eyes to what it is and what it can be. I just think it's important that they're playing for people who do emphasize skill and who do emphasize, the same things you're emphasizing. So it can't turn into we're pitted against each other. It has to be, okay, I'm calling you because I trust you. And I have this kid that I trust you, and I really need this kid to do, to be able to do this, this, and this, or I need them to get seen, or, whatever the case is. So I think that it's headed in a direction that can be good, as long as it's not abused or, things like that. I'm not opposed to it at all. I think it has to be done the right way, for sure.
I agree, Coach. And you said something that was good about having your kids playing other different sports, because sometimes you can burn out on it, because you are right. As soon as our season ends, these kids, they start traveling everywhere, and it's like every weekend they go somewhere, and that can and it does weigh on kids a lot, and it's so much expected from them, because again, this is the main way now that college coaches recruit kids. They just come as the live period, or they come during the summer, and they watch these kids, and these kids are really trying to ball out, because college coaches still come to the school, somewhat, but they want to see you against other talent, the top tier talent. So I think that's very important. And you are right, Coach. I don't really know how we connect as you said, AAU coaches and high school coaches together, because you see this, and I've seen it too. You'll go to a practice, or you'll go to a gym, or you'll go to a game, and the AAU coaches is saying, see, they don't teach you that at your high school. They don't let you be free. They don't let you do these different things. And so, and they like, well, see, with us, you can do this. And then sometimes you have high school coaches say, well, see, you pick up them bad habits at AAU, that's why you don't need to be doing it. And I don't know if you can do this or not, but it would be great if you could find a way so the high school coach and the AAU coach can kind of be on the same page, and it'll make things so much. I think it makes so much better. Now I know recruitment and maybe that kind of can get a little, that can get a little cloudy there, because again, that creates a whole different thing that we don't want to go down. But if we could find a way to streamline it, I think more people will see the benefits of it. But I want to support each other. We can't be saying these side things on the side, really tearing us down.
Yeah, we have to remember it's about the kids, just them getting better. And then I think everything will fall in line.
Yeah, it is. And I think sometimes those individuals who get into coaching, maybe on the AAU circuit, sometimes when that spotlight gets bright, they forget that sometime. And you can understand it, because if you're an AAU coach and you got a Nike sponsored team or Under Armour team, and you around, different, basketball players, you stand in a nice hotel, you got all this gear, it's possible to kind of lose your way in that. That's natural, but we got to consistently, be there, be where we need to be, and be there for those kids.
Right.
I was listening to Coach Carlisle on a podcast, one of my teammates, Nick Walker, and he talked about kids should play for teams where they can get playing time, because Coach Carlisle made a good point. I never thought about this. A lot of times the AAU teams are kind of for the kids that already kind of got it already. Sometimes it's a showcase for them. And it made me think about it, because when I play AAU, I wasn't the best, but I did miss some key development things, because majority of the playing time went to those main guys. So that just kind of made me think about it when you said that, like, you got to find a program for your kid that they're going to excel. And every kid wants to go to Atlanta, go to Vegas, New York, but you might have to just get on a team where you might just only go to the air base or go out to Flowood. But if you you can play,
right,
that's good. And then, if preferably you can travel. So I think that's good, Coach. Coach, how do you? I know. Is it your son, or is it your son that plays AAU track?
Well, he plays a little bit of AAU basketball, but he's deep into the baseball right now.
Okay. Well, talk about that though. Talk about a little bit about that, because I love to kind of go between sports, and you hear these things about baseball and kind of getting so pricey and things of that nature. Just give us an insight as a parent, and because you pretty much wearing two hats. You a coach, then you're also a parent. So talk to us about, what do you see, like, just in travel baseball, like how do you not leave mom role, but at the same time not be coach role, not be coach mom? Like, how do you kind of find a balance between both of those?
Okay, well, I'm not very good at just being a mom. I definitely I try not to yell anything that is against anything the coach is saying, obviously. Mine's usually things about hustle and doing things the right way. My travel ball coach growing up, you could not, when you stepped out of the dugout, you sprinted to your base. And I played third base, so a lot of times I might be sprinting 3 feet, but you sprinted to your base. And so if I see my kid walking, I'm like, you need to run, but one thing with the team that he is playing on is they are very talented, actually. But a guy here locally just decided that he was gonna do a team, and he said, we'll stay local, we'll go play, but we'll stay local. And so it has been pretty inexpensive for us. But the programs can get pricey, and I think that can be difficult, because as a parent, you are trying to provide your kid the best training, the best program, the best everything, really, because it's your kid. But at the same time, I do think it can be done inexpensively. And that can be good too, and there's a lot of people willing to give back and do that. Our coaches are high school coaches, and so they're getting the same, thing that maybe the other programs are getting. And so it's been good. And we play so much, I think just from the sheer reps, he's getting better, and to me, that's important too. So travel ball can be good. It has its, cons as well, but it definitely has a lot of pros.
That's good, Coach. Thank you for sharing. Like you said, we just trying to create positivity and just create a positive narrative. We can kind of get to a good place.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna go to our fast break questions, and I know I'm excited about one question to hear you talk about this question, but I'm gonna wait to the end. So Coach, for those who may be new to the episode, I know some people maybe their first time on because they're here to support Coach Dixon. Our fast break questions are questions that we just kind of randomly come up with that kind of let you see the coach's personality, but also just have a little bit of fun. So our first fast break question for Coach Dixon. Coach, what would be your all-time coaching staff? Now, it can't be anybody on your staff currently. And I'm gonna make it a little bit tougher, and maybe I might throw your list off. You can't choose anybody. No, I'm not gonna do that to you. You can't choose anybody on your current coaching staff, but give me your all-time coaching staff.
All right. Well, when I think all-time coaches staff, obviously I think a lot of college coaches. My favorite coach, and I take a lot of heat for this, is Tom Izzo. So Tom Izzo is my number one. Number two would be Coach K. My number three would probably be Gino. I love Gino. And then 4 would be, let's see, Pat Summit. Pat Summit for sure. And then who's my 5? Let's see. So I got Tom Izzo. I'm gonna go with Phil Jackson. Phil is one of the best they ever did. I really, really, really like Popovich, but I think I might put Popovich over that. I don't know. I'm right there with Popovich and Jackson.
Oh man, I love Tom Izzo, Coach. That's Tom Izzo, and it's not gonna be many more like him because Tom Izzo sometimes can get a little physical with his kids, and everybody kind of put that spotlight on him. But Tom Izzo is a guy that I like because his toughness, it oozes, and I know that's not a word, but it just comes through his skin. He kind of reminds me of Bob Huggins a little bit. I kind of like those guys, those tough demeanor guys.
Mm-hmm.
I like the list, Coach. Coach K, Gino, of course, Pat Summit, and of course, Phil Jackson. Hey, we can go ahead and throw Pop in there. Pop is a legend in and of itself.
Yes.
All right, so still staying with coaches. Coach, you've been coaching a while. Talk about some of your favorite matchups against some of the coaches you coached against. And you can give us why if you want to or not, but just talk about some of your favorite matchups with coaches.
Okay, coaches. Well, in my district, I have Sharon Murray, who's excellent. I like coaching against her because it's such a challenge. Like, that if you do anything wrong, they're gonna pull away. And so it's like you're really working to try to get over the hump. And she's so good, anyway, and her teams are always good. So I really like playing against her. Like playing against her, and then let's see. Obviously, Brookhaven throws a big kink in there too because he throws so many different things. He kind of runs a matchup zone, but it makes you really think. You got to really figure it out. And then he gets fired up, when you go on a run, he gets real fired up. I like Coach Wilson a lot too. I think those are the couple I really like coaching against. At least right now, our district is swapping up a little bit. But those are definitely always battles and definitely challenges that grow me. I feel like they really, really force me to grow.
Yeah, Coach, who's going to be your district upcoming this year?
So it's still going to be Brookhaven. Then you got Natchez, and then you got North Pike, South Jones, and Provine.
Okay. That's tough district, Coach. I want to say, if I'm not mistaken, Coach Wilson's son, I want to say that's right. His son was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. So shout out to Coach Wilson as well. All right, Coach, talk to us about what's be our next question. Coach, what's the most memorable moment you've had on the floor? I'm gonna throw player and as a coach. What's the most memorable moment you've had with basketball as a player and as a coach?
Okay, so as a player, this is kind of a crazy scenario, but we were at Provine and it was wall to wall people. It's hot as all get out. We're down 4 and there's 2.3 seconds left. And our coach calls a timeout, you know, or maybe their coach. I don't remember who called a timeout. Somebody called a timeout. And so our coach, you know, he says, just throw it into Lauren, try to get fouled. They're not going to foul you. She's over there telling them right now, let her shoot the 3. We'll win by 1, you know. Well, I ridiculously lean in to somebody and somehow bank it in. And so it goes in and time goes off. So I'm at Provine. Everybody is hype as all get out in there. And I have to go to the line and make a free throw to send it to overtime. And I made the free throw. So thank God. But I made the free throw. So that's my favorite player moment, honestly. As a coach, let's see. We beat Northwest Rankin a couple years ago. And we really weren't supposed to. That was a really cool moment because it kind of showed the girls what they could be. And same thing, my second year at Florence, I had a really good group. They were really coachable. You know, they just did anything you told them to do. And we played Ridgeland, second game of the year, and we beat them. And we were not supposed to by any means. And it was kind of one of those things. It went right down the stretch, and we beat them, and we were shocked. We were as shocked as they were, honestly. But that was a great moment because that, again, you have to have moments like that when you're trying to change a program because you have to say, look what you can do, you know? And so that was really a neat moment too.
Coach, you took me back down memory lane when you're talking about a packed JPS gym. It's like no other. And of course, you know, it's wall to wall and people getting there at 4:00. And so I'm sitting here imagining you at that free throw line. I know it had to be like, oh, so I'm glad you made the shot too, Coach, because that probably would have hunted you for a minute. But
Coach, I actually, when I went to the line, I actually sang a country song to myself. I was singing this Tim McGraw song so that I wouldn't listen to the cheerleaders say and miss it.
And if anybody know Provine cheerleaders, man, they
were loud.
Yes, they were.
That floor was shaking.
All right, Coach. This is one of our it is our popular question in our fast break question. So that's why we ask it every single episode. And you kind of let me know you want to kind of represent hard for somebody. So I'm gonna give you opportunity to do that. But before we do that, Coach, give us your all-time starting 5 in the NBA.
Kobe. My guy's got to be number 1. Jordan. Kobe, Jordan, Shaq. Kobe, Jordan, Shaq. Look, I'm going to have a bunch of point guards. Now I'm like, I got to go with Magic. I need a shooting guard. I ain't going to have no size. Let's see. Because I'm thinking Steph, and then I'm thinking Magic. Oh, that's a weird starting 5, but I'm going to go with it. So Kobe, Jordan, Steph, Shaq, Magic.
All right, so Kobe, Jordan, Shaq, Magic, and Steph. And I like the list. And like I've been saying, this is episode 20. Jordan has been on there every single time. And everybody loves Kobe, but Coach, I've been kind of keeping a tally with it. Kobe is only kind of out of all, maybe, I guess, because every coach, some coaches were football coaches and volleyball coaches, but for those basketball coaches that we asked, Kobe's only been on this about 2 or 3 times. And it's been hard for him to make the list. And I get it because when you, like some people do it in pop positions, I like the way you did it. You changed it up. And that's why I love In the Sand podcast. You can do those things. You just kind of just created a list that flows of just super talent. And Kobe makes the list. But, you know, Kobe doesn't.
Got to make the list. He's got to make the list, Coach. He's got to make the list.
Kobe does. He's on there. Like I said, this may be his 3rd or 4th vote. I mean, be honest, Shaq got a couple more votes than he did, Magic and Steph. So it's good to see that. Now, let's talk about point guards. You know, all-time point guards. Now, I got a little cheat sheet. You said you think Isaiah is the best point guard of all time. And some people.
Did I say that? I
Um,
don't think I said he was the best of all time. I said he's got to make the list. He's got to make the list.
No, I'm just messing with you. But again, talk about your all-time starting five. Well, no, your all-time point guards in general, because some people, and what I was leading with that is some people don't have Isaiah on the list because some people got Magic, obviously, then they go to Steph. And then with this generation, they're going more to the non-traditional point guard. So when you look at Isaiah, of course, you know, as they say, some of the older heads are going to put Isaiah, but Isaiah doesn't make a lot of people's list. So I'm gonna allow you fight for your guy Isaiah, but give us your 5 point guards, the 5 best point guards of all time in the NBA.
All right, John Stockton, Magic, Isaiah. Let's see, Sue Bird. I can wait. I can go. Can I go WNBA one? Okay, okay. Sue Bird, and then let's see. You know, I'm a Steve Nash guy. I like Steve Nash a lot. I'm gonna go Steve Nash.
Why is Isaiah on your list?
Well, I think you have to. I think you have to respect what he's done, obviously, and I think he's one of the all-time greats. He's gritty and grimy and tough-nosed, and I like that in a point guard. Put him on my list.
That's what's up. Shout out to Isaiah Thomas, man. Um, last last 2 or 3 questions. Coach, what's your game time routine? As you, and we talked about the limits for the podcast, you know, we as coaches, we still kind of get those butterflies and we have nothing on the court wise to do with the game. Because what are some of your game time routines as you prepare for a game?
Well, Coach, I actually, every game or most games, I type up a game day schedule for the girls, depending on what time we're eating, to exactly when they need to get dressed, to what they do, you know, every second in between. Because I just think it's important that they get a routine and a schedule. And they do a good job about doing it, you know, and I send it out to everybody. I used to hang it in the locker room, but I started just kind of sending it in the group chat. This is what we're doing. And so that's been good for the girls. For me, you know, I hang out in my office with Stan some, but most of the time I'm ripping and running. You know, our kids are usually there. And it's just kind of chaotic until, you know, until that hour kind of before the game starts, and then we kind of have I guess more of a schedule at that point. Um, but I wouldn't say that I do anything the same every single time. I'm not, you know, I did as a player maybe, but I don't think I do that as much as a coach. Um, you know, so if I'm real nervous, I'll sit around and listen to some worship music. But if I'm okay, we're good to go. Then it's just kind of keeping up with my kids and then rolling from there, making sure everything's, you know, where it needs to be, because there's so much on coaches to just make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to do before a game. You know, all the stuff people really don't see.
Yeah, I know this is the fast break part of the section, so the question's supposed to go fast, but I gotta stop right here. Coach Tamika Brown from Madison Central said the exact same thing. Like that's the one of the reasons I wanted to create the podcast, because, and I haven't said this in a while, so I'm glad it came back up. People come to the game and they just think that part when they see us is all of that happens. But like Coach Brown said, one time she had to go run and get chicken strips. And a lot of times you got to make sure the concessions, right? The visiting locker room, the referees, the snacks, who's working the gate, who got the clock, who got
Right.
it's so much that goes into it. So I'm glad that you said that, Coach. So it's a process getting ready for the game. And I'm kind of similar. It's funny you said that my routine is kind of similar. I don't have a routine that I do just every single time, but it's kind of similar to that. Once I can get everything settled, then I can really kind of just get ready for the game. And especially when I was coaching girls and boys, it was so much. Like we literally ran from when school got out about 2:35. So we going from 2:35 pretty much to 9:30. So that was a grind, but I was glad I had Justin
Right.
helping me with that. All right, last
Right.
2 questions, Coach. What were some of your favorite high school teams growing up? And of course, you kind of saw both sides of it with playing a little bit of private school basketball, public school. So what are some of your favorite just teams growing up? And I said high school, but if you want to throw some NBA college teams, what are some of your favorite teams growing up?
Yeah. He used to take me out to go watch Ingmar. and the Murrah girls teams when I was little, with the Rogers sisters. And that's really where I started to love basketball, was just going to the Coliseum and getting to watch those teams, and Tan White from Tupelo, just getting to watch some of the great girls teams. But obviously, when I was in high school, that was a great time period of Jackson basketball. Obviously, we had Monte and Charles Rhodes and them come through Lanier and Al Graham. But I actually loved Jeremy Wise's game. He was one of my favorite, players probably to watch, just because of his left hand and his long, and I really, really liked his game too. So, and then we had Kevin Sims. So he kind of was to me, underrated, for what he did. I want to say he may have led the city in scoring at one point. But he was super skilled and super special. So I've been around basketball my whole life, so it's kind of hard to just pinpoint, a couple teams, but I've definitely enjoyed, the Coliseum being in Jackson. Just being able to go to all those games over the years has been special.
Coach, I didn't even know about Ingomar really until I started coaching at a small school at Pisgah. So it was good that you kind of got exposed to them early. My dad did the same thing. Like, my dad, it was a lot. People don't realize, well, people younger than us may not remember this, but the Coliseum used to be doing spring break. And
Yeah.
it was a 2-week window sometimes. So my dad would sneak off work, and he would take us, and we would go to the Coliseum all the time. And that's why I fell in love. And that's one of my biggest dreams. And I haven't said this until now on the podcast. I've told people around me, like, I really want to win a state championship and be there with my parents, because I go to the Coliseum now, like all coaches, but it's just special to me. The Coliseum is just a part of my childhood, and I love being there. Love watching Merle play. Obviously, I went there. The Rogers sisters were amazing young ladies. I went to school with them, elementary as well as high school, so it was good just being around them. Jeremy Wise obviously was a teammate of mine, very skilled, very talented guy. So shout out to Coach, shout out to Jeremy Wise and Kevin Sims, man. I really respected Kevin Sims' game. He was a silent sniper, and he really did not get a lot of credit. Like, the guy could ball, and it's good to see him coaching on the collegiate level right now. So again, big ups to Coach Sims as well. Last question, Coach, and I started off with this question, and I want to end with it, but now you get a chance to be able to talk about it. Coach, what's something that people often get wrong about you when they see you coach against you, just spend time with you? What's something they often get wrong, but it's really not what it is?
I think people, maybe from the outside looking in, like, it seems like I'm probably so intense all the time. But I'm really pretty laid back. Kim Mulkey said this one time, and I do believe it. She said, you can't get too much accomplished being laid back. You have to be passionate. You have to be intense about what you're doing. And I do believe that. So, but I think for the most part, I'm pretty easygoing. I try not to get worked up too much over the small stuff. But if you just see me coach, you may think a little differently. I get real worked up when I coach.
Man, it's no problem with that, man. Big up to Coach Lauren Dixon, man. Just passionate young lady. Coach, it's the conclusion of our podcast. It's been a great podcast. It's been good talking with you. But as always, we give you the last shot as we conclude the podcast.
Okay. Well, I wanted to use this podcast for the young coaches that may be going into a program. When you get your first head coaching job, a lot of times it is not ideal. You have to take something that, most people don't want. That's why they're willing to give you a chance, to get to take your very first one. But you can do it. You need to make sure the circumstance is favorable to do it. Coach Anthony Carlisle told me one time, don't take just anything, make sure it's something you can turn. But if you feel like you can turn it, you feel like God's telling you to go there, trust your gut. Coach Howell always tells me, he's one of my real good friends. He always says, I'm a bet on myself. And I'm with you, Coach. You got to bet on yourself. So young coaches, you can definitely turn the program. Just take it, step by step and day by day, and make it happen.
those very encouraging words to some young coaches out there, even some not so young coaches. And one thing that I like what Coach just said is that she named some people that she can glean from, talk to, bounce ideas off. And that's one thing that I would love to see. And hopefully this podcast can create that more, is to create genuine relationships where we can be transparent, we can be vulnerable, and we can build relationships, because we're so much better when we're working and helping each other out. Because just listening to these podcasts, and I talk to coaches off, off air, things of that nature, they like, man, I'm glad you said that because I didn't know you were dealing with it. Or I'm glad that I heard such and such say that because it was amazing. Like I remember when I was talking to Coach McCray at South Pike, when we were talking, man, he was going down the list. Like I remember when what's the name said this on the podcast, and she said this, and he said this. And so we need to have more of those conversations so we can just kind of all continue to achieve greatness. So again, Coach, thank you for coming on to the podcast. Again, I appreciate you. I know you're a busy lady, of course, your mother, your wife, teacher. I mean, it's a grind. So just for you to carve out a little bit of time for me in the podcast is amazing. So please subscribe to this. Please support Coach Dixon. Florence community, you got a great coach on your hands. Please support her. And this is something new. I'm just saying, I feel it in my spirit, man. Supporter, coming to the games, but also to support to what they got going on. It takes funds, resources to be able to do some great things. So again, don't be afraid to support them financially. And again, Coach didn't tell me to say that. I just felt it in my spirit. And just being a coach, sometimes we want to do great things, but we want to be able to go to college camps. We want to be able to give our kids the best, take them out to restaurants, movie, do some things. And I know a lot of people are wondering, how can I help? How can I help a program? And I know some of us are very generous. And so that's something. So I'm just advocating, man, support your local high school coach, support your local teams, do those things. And that can go a long, long way, because you just never know. A case of Gatorade. And I know something that's growing big. A lot of programs are trying to build a health nutrition station where kids can come in and get snacks after they lift weights, fruit, protein bars, water. Like that's something that you can do. So support, and not just Florence fans, all those fans of schools and fans of coaches, support them, man. They may need that. Just bless somebody. So we want to use this platform to continue to bless people. So until next time, as I always say, be kind and be nice to someone. And we'll see you on the next episode.